Hey everyone, this is Robert, and thank you for tuning in to Station Square. Hope everybody's doing well and having a lovely summer so far. And just doing whatever it is that whatever plans that you have for this weekend. Hope it's a lot of fun and everything. So today we're gonna be chatting with somebody who's been in the business for a while. They recently have been making been doing working a lot on Crunchyroll and been doing a lot in anime, improv, and doing a bunch of stuff in between. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna be chatting with my good this fellow gentleman that I have in the corner, Mr. Kristian
Eris.
Eros.
It
Yeah,
it
we're gonna talk.
sounds nothing like how it's spelled, for sure.
Yeah, but thank you so much for joining me for today. I really do
Yeah,
appreciate it.
you're absolutely welcome. Thank you for inviting me to be on.
Many times. So, I guess we'll just jump right into it. How has this year been for you? Like, I know you've been doing like a lot of stuff this year that I've been seeing. So, yeah, if you could just describe how, this year has been like, as doing like a little bit of a retrospective of how, you know, 2023 has been and, what you've been up to and anything that you like to talk about at the moment.
Yeah, sure. Like every year has its ups and downs. So, like, yeah, I've had some really great moments, and I've had some moments where it's just like, ugh. Like, for instance, on Thursday, I threw my back out, and it wasn't even like, oh, what'd you do? Like, oh, I was lifting bricks. No, I was sitting here in my booth and editing some lines, and I shifted slightly. My back just fell apart. It was like a lightning bolt. And I've none of this is super relevant, but other than that, like stuff's been good. I've been traveling a lot, doing improv shows, and I got representation, like my dream representation here in Texas, and I even got representation for appearances and conventions and stuff like that, which was really cool and unexpected because that was not something I was looking for, but that is just an opportunity that approached me, and I wasn't looking a gift horse in the mouth kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad to, see you grow and see you progress and yeah, just doing everything that you've been, working on because I know it's specifically like, with improv and everything that you mentioned, like it's very, crucial and critical. Like it's such an integral, part of, getting, training and, acting experience and
Hmm.
it just, having fun and get out of your head and just think outside of the box.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. Like when I started taking improv classes, I did not have in my mind that I wanted to become an improviser. That was not my goal. It was just to be a better actor. And then I watched Take One perform. Take One's an improv group. And I fell in love. I watched them and it was like magic. They were the best improvisers I'd ever seen. And I had in my mind, I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that so badly. And it was kind of cool because like quite a few of Take One's members were also instructors at the school I was attending for classes. And like a month or 2 months after I started doing anime, I was invited to join Take One. I was actually invited to join a couple groups like within the same couple of weeks. But like, I don't know, it just blew my mind to join Take One, and we work hard. We rehearsals every single weekend, plus we perform at theaters, at festivals, we perform um every so often we will get hired by companies to do, we call them corporate gigs. Um those are fun. And then we also get to travel around like Colorado and New Mexico, all over Texas. We've gone to Kansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. I feel like I'm forgetting a place to do shows and perform the entire weekend at conventions, and it has been so fulfilling as a performer, and it's been so cool and getting to meet so many people, like face to face kind of thing, like doing voice acting, you don't really meet too many people, like it's so different from theater where you get to see the audience and they react to you the moment you say something, and it is gratifying in a way that, you know other types of acting you don't really get to experience that.
Oh, for sure. um, so sorry, I had something stuck in my throat. But anyways, yeah, I definitely agree because like there's nothing like being up on a stage and then, just
Mhm.
making magic happen. And whatever happens is like, you know what? That's a once, it's like something that you can't really replicate. So it's like, you know what? Might as well cherish it.
Oh, absolutely. And doing these shows has afforded me opportunities that I wasn't expecting. And it's not why I started doing it. I started doing it because it makes me feel good. I've always been the class clown. I grew up, comedy was my coping mechanism. It was how I interacted with other people. It was like the safe place for me. So to do it on this more professional level with people who are so talented, um, it means a lot to me, you know.
Definitely. Um, so is this always like, I guess your calling card getting into acting from when, ever since you were like really little? If we were to go talk about your background for a little bit.
Sure. No, you're totally good. Probably. So whenever like I think about how I wanted to get into voice acting specifically, I always credit Kevin Conroy and Luke
Oh my,
Hamill. Not Luke
Mark
Hamill, Mark Hamill.
Hamill. Ha! Luke Hamill.
Luke Skywalker.
The force shall be with you, Luke
Yeah,
Hamill.
Luke Hamill. Yeah, no, I always credit
Yeah.
them. It was like the moment I learned that Luke Skywalker was the Joker, it blew my little mind. But yeah, acting in general, I think what really inspired me was watching my older brother. Um, there's a bit of an age gap between us. So I was in elementary school and he was in high school. And I watched him do a play. I think it was Dracula. And I wanted to be just like him. And then I discovered too, and this is really silly. I discovered that Han Solo was Indiana Jones, which I feel like the face is a dead giveaway, but for whatever reason, like they were just so separate to me. Like these people were real. And then I was like, oh no, that's just acting. So there's so many, I guess a lot of what inspired me to want to be an actor was Star Wars. um, so yeah, and then like comedy, a lot of my comedy inspiration was Jerry Lewis when I was a kid. I loved
Oh my
Jerry
goodness,
Lewis.
dude, Jerry Lewis, I feel like Jerry is so overlooked. Like, a lot of people, like, when it comes to comedic inspirations, Jerry Lewis is kind of somebody who was a one of a kind, and yet
Mm,
I feel he still doesn't get as much recognition as he probably should. Like, I feel like he kind of was one of the, um, because I know we can discuss Robin Williams or Jim Carrey and,
yeah.
a lot of these other comedians that are known for fast-paced humor. I think Jerry was one of the first. I mean, there's been like other comedians that were doing this type of comedy, but I think he was one of the first ones that really mastered like the screwball zany humor that we kind of are still seeing to this very day, like as an influence and inspiration. Like, I mean, we've seen it with Robin, with Jim, Eddie Murphy, and a lot of these folks that you see today. And I think a lot of it, most of them, they really do. Oh, they've given credit to Jerry for being an inspiration for starting, but kind of like at least mastering, like the type of Looney Tunes esque humor that you see in his movies. I think he
Yeah.
was one of the first that really excelled in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because like it's not. I feel like in his day he got tons of recognition. Like he was very famous way
Yeah,
back when. It's
in
just
France.
yeah, and so it's just like I for it's just time. It's been so
Yeah,
long since he was on TV, and so many more. Like
yeah,
we're very influenced by who we see at the moment. The only reason I
yeah.
know about Jerry Lewis was because my older sister was a fan, and she loves black and white movies. Like she still to this day watches mostly black and white movies, and we will watch old sci-fi together all the time. And yeah, that's where that came from. And from her, she got it from my dad. He liked Jerry Lewis. Um, but without them influencing me, I don't think I would have ever heard of Jerry Lewis.
Okay. I know this is probably something that you might have, because it's really funny because in your demo reel, like I know that, and I swear this is definitely gonna connect. I know that you jokingly said that, with Rob Paulson, like your voice kind of has a similar timbre to, his natural speaking voice and
Yeah.
the characters that he plays. And I'm like, and I was just thinking about Animaniacs because that was actually where I first started, where, that was my introduction to Jerry Lewis because,
They do a lot
uh,
of
yeah,
references, and
yeah, Jerry
especially like in
Lewis,
Looney
yeah.
Tunes, Animaniacs, they do a lot of references to like pop culture and things like that. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and like celebrities and movies at the time, but yeah, Jerry Lewis in particular was like, and you could just see the inspiration with the Warners, and the Paul Rogg, I think that's his name. Um, I think he's also one of my influences because like what he did, like managing to capture Lewis's persona and personality just really well, and I guess I can kind of see it with SpongeBob too,
Yeah,
being a possible influence, with Tom Kenny, um, and just these shows that are like screwball, like kind of like zany, fast-paced comedy, like I said. Jerry Lewis was kind of like the inspiration for all of that. Yeah,
yeah,
as far as I
yeah.
can tell.
He's definitely a huge influence on so much comedy. It's funny you bring up Rob Paulson because that's not my opinion. I don't hear the similarities between me and Rob. That's been told to me like over and over again through the years, especially when I do like my kind of higher voice characters. If I go a little higher in my registry, people are like, "Oh, you sound like Yakko Warner," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, if you say so."
I mean, like, hello, nurse.
Hello, nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah. See,
So, see,
like you, I don't know. I don't hear it, but it's whatever. I also like. I'm not. I'm kind of funny. Like I'm one of the rare voice actors, I guess, who doesn't do impressions. I mean, I know there's a
uh,
lot out there, but like,
I mean,
whenever
they're
I
fun,
tell,
but I mean, of course, we know that's not really like. I mean, it's acting, but if you can do a bad impersonation, then you can make a new character. So, you know.
right? Yeah. So like, I just don't. Whenever I tell people I'm a voice actor, they always say, "Hey, do this character, do that character," and I'm like, those aren't my characters. I haven't worked on those. But like I it's happened a few times where I accidentally do impressions.
Yeah.
Like Solid Snake. I was doing an
Oh my
audiobook
goodness.
and I accidentally made the main character of that book a snake, a solid snake impression. Rob Paulson with Yakko, I don't mean to do it. Christopher Walken, apparently I'll like fall into his cadence sometimes. I don't mean to. Um feel like there's more where it is completely accidental. And when people ask me to do it on purpose, I can't, except for Solid Snake, because I did like 2 books with the same main character, and I couldn't break out of it.
Oh, yeah. There would be times where you can accidentally do like, and I don't want to say impersonation, but you can kind of sound like a character when you don't
Okay.
even realize it. I
Yeah.
think that's part of the fun with improv. It's like, just come up with something on this, something, anything, and it's like, oh wow, did I just do like a really terrible Chris Tucker? Like, what is this? Or Chris Rock, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I did for a character. Then I ended up booking it, and I'm like, okay,
That's
sure, what?
awesome.
Let's, I'll take it.
I saw an indie game. I can't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, where it felt like it was a parody to Metal Gear Solid. And the main character, like, I heard the voice, and the guy did great. But I was just like, oh, I desperately want to do that. Be like a really
Mhm.
bad David Hayter. That would have been
Yeah,
so fun. But alas, I saw it after the game was done. So,
imagine Solid Snake reading an audiobook. Oh my
oh
goodness.
man, it yeah. Also, too, like imagine a character slowly becoming Solid Snake throughout all the chapters, because that's what happened in that book.
Yeah. It was on a nice sunny day, and I was infiltrating the base. There's a couple of guys that were just standing there,
So I got in a
menacingly.
box,
There's this really big box. I like that box a lot.
and then I called Otacon, and I was watching helicopters. Metal Gear. Yeah.
And then I started watching a parody on Newgrounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways. But anyways, before we go into a Solid Snake type of thing, this is why we love improv. Yeah. We kind
Yeah.
of just that's part of the fun of the podcast. We kind of just ramble about different stuff and then just, you know, go into different we just kind of slip into different character impressions and then just do whatever. Going off the
Yeah.
cuff and then just chaos just ensues. That's my
Yeah, it's
favorite
just a
type of podcast.
casual talk.
Yeah, casual, but yeah. With your background and everything, because with Jerry Lewis and then, the stuff that you've watched growing up, I'm just wondering, like, because I know you've been on stage,
Mhm.
so I know it's definitely a question that's kind of been, asked from time to time, but with you in particular, like with the skills that you've learned, being up on the stage, um, I know the question is going to be like, so how are you, like, what's the difference between stage acting or voice acting? So how are you able to carry those
Mm.
skills behind the microphone for you personally?
That
Just everyone's different. Yeah.
everyone's different for sure. So I mean, yeah, I did stage in like theater and high school and college. Um, but then like I didn't act for a really long time. I lived in Indiana, which is not like an acting hub, and I didn't have the gumption to just move to LA to be an actor. So I gave up. I didn't do it for a really long time, and then I moved to Dallas, just completely unrelated. It wasn't for anime. It was just life brought me here. And I was miserable, and I was watching a Dragon Ball Z movie and discovered like, "Oh, hey, that's recorded here." Like the Funimation office where it used to be, it's moved now, but like it was within walking distance of my home. Like I said, completely it was so coincidental it felt like fate, right? So I jumped headlong into learning as much as I could about voice acting. So it's kind of funny. Like I purposefully wanted to be a voice actor, and I fell into improv. Now, like as part of my training, like because I couldn't afford classes. I didn't make very much money. So I started doing theater, like community theater, which is always something that people recommend. Like, hey, just do community theater. It was a way to get free directing and learn from actors around me. Um, so to answer your question, how do I bridge that gap between stage acting and voice acting? It's tough because in theater on stage, you're big, you're larger than life. And so when I take that to like anime specifically, it doesn't work for every anime. It only works for specific anime. And the whole larger than life cartoony style of acting is definitely on the decline. You'll actually find like big cartoony acting is more exceptions to the rule than being standard. They want more realistic. So that is something that I can struggle with, and I have in the past, of being too much. Um, so like, how do I, bridge the gap? How do I do all that? And it's just practice. Like it is taking more classes. It's getting the coaching. It's being in my booth right here and recording things, listening back to it, and just doing it again and again and figuring out, hey, what sounds more realistic? What sounds more, uh, there's that buzzword, conversational, and just working my butt off over and over and over again. And then, yeah, just sticking to it. Because, like, my natural tendencies, like, I grew up on Jerry Lewis, like I said, like, my natural tendencies is to be big, is to be weird, is to be over the top. Um, Like I did, it was actually funny. So I'm also in Diablo 4, and I recorded for Diablo 4 over the course of a year. And there was one session where I literally went from Funimation, I was doing anime, from that to, I went to a different studio to record for Blizzard. And the director asked me, he's like, hey, this is my first time meeting him. He said, hey, do you do anime? And I said, yeah, actually, I just came from a session. He's like, all right, cool. I need you to stop that. I need you to be like, not stop anime, but like stop reading it as if it were anime because they want cinematic reads. They want completely like, if like take a person who is an on-camera actor and make them digital. That's what they were looking for. And it took me like a solid couple of minutes to switch my brain over to being so understated it barely felt like acting. And that's harder for me than I'd like it to be. But eventually I got into it and um yeah, it's in the game. It's cool.
Read. I know that it can be kind of hard to break away from those anime or like radio performances. Like I was literally just talking to somebody yesterday about like how we're kind of starting to see this shift where every like we all are looking it kind of depends on what client this is, but
Hmm.
we're shifting more into cinematic stuff. I guess I've seen on The Last of Us
Yeah.
or, like Final Fantasy and what have you. Like, they definitely are looking for more cinematic reads and looking for more conversational stuff. Like, as you've seen in commercials, like, they're looking for more conversational stuff, like you're actually talking to a friend or a loved one. So, and as much fun as it is to do that in a world type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that some still look for them, for, the type of Don LaFontaine, the in a world stuff, but,
In a world.
um, yeah, I mean, it's really fun to do, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so they want more conversational stuff. Okay, gotcha. Um, and I'm just starting to lose my train of thought, but I was saying that yeah, we're moving away from the radio type of Sunday stuff
Yeah.
to more hey, switch to switch to guy. Oh man. I'm just goofing around again. It's like, hey, do you know that you can save your insurance by switching to Geico or something? So
I always
that's
I
yeah.
always love that when I do auditions for commercials. It's actually less of a thing now. Um, but I remember like a couple years ago, they'd say, "Hey, we need this to be conversational," and then the script I would read would be the most radio thing ever. You know, so it's like, how in the world do you want me to
Okay, how
speak
can I
this
do
way?
this?
Yeah. So like I teach like intro courses to voice acting, like bare minimum. Like
Oh
I've
yeah.
never like I don't know anything about voice acting, and I teach a class like how to like start. And so I have one of the classes I do is on commercial, and I picked scripts that are difficult and challenging on purpose. I've actually had people get grumpy at me because the scripts are kind of bad, quote unquote. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's on purpose. Like, I know this is something that you might have to deal with in the future. So it's a good skill to have to make um the silly, like there's a script where it's about dog food. You know, it's like, oh, me and Buddy, well, we love to eat food, but I only feed him nature's best all natural dog food. It's like, well, how do you make that sound natural? Because no one says that. Nature's best all natural dog food available at your local store. Okay,
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 I'm just gonna
robots.
say I can imagine this being like a Gary Owens thing. It's like buy the dog food. It's really good for your colon or something. Your dog will be very healthy in no time. And it's like,
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, make it.
how do I make it sound natural?
Yeah, how do I make it sound like I'm not an alien, like trying to pretend to be human? Because that's what it feels like. But luckily, I haven't received an audition like that in a while. So it does seem like they are moving away, like they are bridging that gap between what they want and what they write. So that's good. That's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that with some of the projects that you've worked on, I mean, you were in One Piece, the new Trigun,
Hmm.
and Blue Lock, which is and Chainsaw Man, which are like, still very, let's just say that they're really huge and popular.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
want to say popular, but they've been definitely picking up steam on social media.
sure.
So I would just, and I've just asked someone this like yesterday, but with you being in these, anime and with these shows that a lot of people are really starting to get attached to, what have been your overall experience like of with the community or like with the fandom, like if you want to go into it a little bit, like being a part
Uh,
of the VO anime, what have you.
so like interacting with the fandom and community is kind of funny. Um,
Hmm.
I I adore being part of any show, no matter what the role is, right? So
Yeah.
for like Chainsaw Man, I wasn't a specific character necessarily. I just did extra work, you know. I did Walla, so Walla is just like your one voice in a crowd. You know, it's just there are four of us in a booth, and we all. This is where improv really comes in handy, where we just improvise in
Yeah.
world scenes together to fill that sonic space. Um, the coolest thing about Chainsaw Man is like my claim to fame in that show is in episode 1 I play the tomato demon, which is the or devil, which is the first devil you see on screen. But even then all he does is blah, you know. And then I am the zombie that stabs the main character in the back and kills him. Like that's my claim to fame. But, you know, when people learn like the community, the fandom learn, like, oh, you're in Chainsaw Man. Who were you? I'm like, oh, I was extras. I didn't have a name. I was just, and then they're like, oh, cool. Anyways, bye. So it is a very interesting experience. Not that I'm like, I don't need, mm, I don't need validation or a pat on the back or like people to be like, "Oh my god, you're so great. This is amazing. How blah 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 blah." Like I don't necessarily care. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things when we do conventions, we don't advertise because most of Take One we also all do anime.
Mhm.
I don't advertise that I do anime. I'm just there to do improv.
Yeah.
And when we go to conventions, especially since, like we're doing a lot of new conventions since the pandemic, a lot of conventions disappeared and there's lots of new ones. And so Take One has been around for 15 years, 16 years, something like that.
Congrats.
But yeah, well, I've only been a part of it for 2 years, but yeah, I'll pass that along.
Still. Yeah.
But we're doing these conventions where no one's heard of us because they're brand new conventions and brand new places and places where Take One hasn't been before. So by on Friday, nobody knows who we are, but by Sunday, we have fans because we do our very best. But even then, those people when they find out I do voice acting, if they find out, it's the same question, like, oh, you were in One Piece, who were you? I'm like, oh, well, um, I'm one of Gold Roger's pirates. Oh, cool, which one? I
It
was like, well,
was
it's one.
pirate number 4 or something.
Well, no, so this guy actually has a name. His name is Spencer, which is really cool for me. But again, he doesn't. He's just Walla. He's named Walla, which I've never had before. He's a guy with a name, but he is just part of a crowd. And
Yeah.
then like they instantly don't care about that anymore, which is totally fine. Like I said, I don't need people to think I'm great for me to do because I do this. I act. I do this because I feel like I need to. Um, and I adore it, and it fills a piece of me that without acting it, I feel hollow, you know?
Yeah.
And a really cool, like role model mentor I have is Matthew David Rudd, who is the voice of Panda on Jujutsu Kaisen, and he's King Bado in Blue Lock, and he's like some really big characters. Shishido in My Hero Academia, like he's in my eyes like he's big time, but he still does Walla. He still does extras. Like he doesn't have this need to only be the main character, or only be a big name. Like he's totally fine with doing extras and bits, and it's the same for him. It's just doing the work and getting the opportunity to do it. And whether or not people recognize you or give you accolades isn't the point. Sorry, it's a real long answer to your question of how do I
No
interact with
worries.
fans. Is generally I don't. I don't like. I don't have fans online that talk to me about anime, um, which I'm okay with. I do it for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to say? Like you could share your socials, last bit of advice, talk about, teaching, just anything that comes to mind to
Uh,
close out this episode.
I feel like I ended on kind of a downer. Don't feel bad for me. I'm doing great. Like doing Walla and extra work is very fulfilling and it pays the same and I'm very happy. So like, oh, Christian, he's so sad. Christian's fine. Christian's doing great. But yeah, no, I am the Kristian Eros on everything. So THE and then my name, which I'm sure is going to be spelled out in the podcast. Um, I don't have a class going on right now. It's hard. I usually teach on Saturdays and I travel every month, so it's a bit difficult. But if you are interested, you can email me at contact@christianeris.com and let me know that you're interested in a class. And if I get enough people who are interested, I will figure it out. But other than that, just
That's
thank
the
you,
way to
Robert,
go.
for yeah, thank you, Robert, for inviting me. I've had a great time.
Yep, anytime, man. And if anybody wants to check this out, definitely feel free to give me a follow. Just I'll just share all my socials in the link by the time this goes up. I'm Twitter, Instagram, just Robert anywhere. Um, just gonna watch out for those impersonators, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But until then, thank you for watching and stay tuned for next time. And until then, um, good night, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.
Peace.